In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the movie The Bourne Identity, released in 2002. So let's dive right into The Bourne Identity. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast. The Bourne Identity was released on June 14th, 2002, so almost 22 years old at this point, or it is 22 years old at this point, almost 23 years old. The genre is an action thriller. The runtime is an hour and 59 minutes. Budget $60 million. Feels like a lot for 2002. The director was Doug Liman, who also directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which we have a review of up on the channel. So go and check that one out if you want to hear my thoughts on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This movie stars Matt Damon, Franca Potente, Chris Cooper, Clive Owen, Brian Cox, and Adewale Akinwumi Agbaje. Sorry if I screwed up your name there. So, if you're new to the channel, what we do, give my overarching review of the movie, compare it to the movies we've reviewed so far on the Dubcast, and then we'll go into my thoughts and reactions throughout the movie, what I was thinking of things going on. So, starting out with my overarching review, I thought this was kind of a fun movie, pretty classic action movie in my opinion. I love Matt Damon in this role, and I can see how they made a franchise out of it. I did not realize they made 5 movies of Jason Bourne, and not I thought maybe it was 3 or 2. There's 5 out there, and this is the first one, so that's going to be interesting if I choose to go and watch the next ones. So I thought there'd be a little bit more action throughout the film. You know, you hear about Jason Bourne; he's this legendary action figure. There's only really a select. I say select, but there is a decent amount of action. But I just thought there was gonna be a little bit more. You know, that's kind of what I was signing up for. But it ended up being almost like an espionage level movie, in my opinion. Like I kind of tried to split the balance between that and being a true action movie. Just trying to outfox the CIA once the plot gets revealed. Whatever. So I thought the premise of it was pretty interesting. I thought that was a positive for the movie for sure. Him being this amnesiac, waking up and not having any idea who he is, what he did, why he's floating in the middle of the ocean. That's when we pick up the movie with him. I thought that's a whole interesting idea, and he has to kind of retrace his steps throughout the first like 3/4 of the movie to find out who he is, what he did, like what he does, to get in that situation. So the overall premise I thought was a pretty good one. Kept me intrigued at the beginning for sure. I thought it was a pretty strong intro to the movie. So my negative thing, I did feel like it did fall into the cheesy aspects of something you'd expect from this movie, especially with the unnecessary love interest. I mentioned that a lot with the Mr. and Mrs. Smith review. I thought that movie had a lot of cheesy aspects to it. I still give it a decent score, and we'll see what I give this movie, but I thought that there were definitely some scenes where I was like, all right, this is just like a classic action where like it's hard to explain, but like where anything can just happen and it's okay, and it's just like what you'd expect from a typical classic action movie that doesn't really have like a deep analysis or anything. It's just kind of like, oh, here's action, and then like there's like this side plot running through the movie with this girl. So that part I was kind of mid on. So yeah, the whole thing with the girl, he just randomly encounters her at the U.S. Embassy, and then he needs her car, so he talks her up, and then of course she has to kiss him, and then they just continue on throughout the movie. So I thought the whole plot line of them meeting, I guess it's coincidental and it's love, but I thought that it was pretty weak connection between the two main characters, especially. So that storyline just felt a little bit weak to me. Also, in the end, he's just doing absolutely banana things, which is respectable. I mean, it's an action movie, so you have to expect that he's going to be doing like absurd things, and he's this very highly trained CIA agent. But it just takes you out of it a bit due to the movie being so realistic up to that point. I thought until the last I would say 20%, last fifth of the movie, maybe he just starts doing absolutely absurd things. Most of it's realistic at the beginning. He's just being very careful, being like trained, obviously. He beats people up a lot, but I don't know, it just felt like that kind of took me out of it at the end. I hope that the love interest is not back for the sequel movies. I hope it's a different girl, or they just don't do a girl at all. The whole reason I got into this whole franchise was seeing Vines of them saying Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne, was trending on Vine. So is that the latest one that came out? So I'm really going to have to watch all 4 of these to see that line. Whatever. So that's the whole reason why this movie was on my list and why I watched it. Heads up, that's how sometimes shallow my list is. I did want to hear them say the line, but never happened. So I guess I'll wait to see. I did put them on my list for after this list. So we have 78, 77 movies left on this list. Once that's done, I'm revisiting sequels. So we'll go back and watch Jason Bourne. So stick along for the DubCast. 110 movie review will be a Jason Bourne sequel. Um, yeah, so the music was back and forth. I thought some of it I really liked, some of it I didn't. At the beginning I thought was pretty strong, but then throughout it was like kind of that cheesy same music that you'd expect from an action movie. So I'd recommend this movie to any fans of Matt Damon. Which, if you are a really big fan of Matt Damon, I'm sure you've already seen this movie with a little bit of action. Not too much though. It's not like an typical Netflix action movie like Gray Man or Extraction. It's not that much that level of action, but it's more toned down a little bit, but there's still a decent amount of action. So if you like action, this is a pretty nice, clean, fun movie to watch for 2 hours. It's not too long. Thought the ending was a little bit suspect with them never really cluing you in on what happened on the boat. I guess you kind of understand why he does what he does when he's looking at the picture or looking at the kids in her friend's house, or is that her baby father? I don't know. But that I thought was there was a pretty weak lead up to that moment, the big reveal at the end. I guess it's kind of like inferred that you don't want to kill people in front of their kids, and he has a moral compass, so good for him. But I thought that was kind of poorly explained. So overall, I'm giving this movie a 7.4. I think that's a pretty respectable score for this movie. I debated it moving it a little bit lower, but I think 7.4 is pretty strong. It has some decent high highs. I liked the premise of it. I liked Matt Damon as Jason Bourne. I just thought that the love interest fell pretty flat. Some of the action was a little bit cheesy, but there was some good action stuff in there. I really liked Brian Cox in this movie, and it's weird seeing Brian Cox after just watching Succession 20 years ago. Now he's was obviously very younger, kind of like less grayed out, less wrinkles and stuff. So that was interesting to see a younger Brian Cox. So where does this 7.4 relate to the other movies we reviewed on the DubCast? So believe it or not, if you've been along for the full ride, this is DubCast movie number 25. This lands at number 20. Like I said, that feels a little bit low than how it could be, but that's how it is. I feel like every movie we've watched, besides the movies below this one, were pretty good, and even some of the ones below this are pretty good. I thought this movie was fine. I thought it was good. So I just haven't really watched any bad movies that I've reviewed. I've watched a couple movies that I haven't put on the cast because they just weren't worth podcasting about, that were lower. So this is a high tier podcast. We need all the higher tier movies. So this is 7.4. Thought it was a pretty respectable score. This is our sixth lowest movie reviewed so far. So this does tie with the movie Awakenings, but I think if you go head to head, I do give Awakenings the slight advantage due to having a little bit more of a compelling story. So I'm giving Awakenings the 7.4 lead over Bourne Identity. Granted, they're both 7.4, so it's very close. So how does this movie stack up to against Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Mr. and Mrs. Smith got a 7.9. This got a 7.4, so I thought this movie was a little bit worse than Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Same director as well, so Doug Liman movies. We got Mr. and Mrs. Smith, top tier, Bourne Identity, next tier down. So, yeah, that's all we'll use with the DubCast graphic. Excited to continue adding more movies into this, and we'll have to figure out how to get it to fit on screen a little bit better once, things are more filled out, but that's for another day. So now let's dive into my thoughts and reactions throughout the film. So starting it out, I mentioned this before. I really like the introduction with him in the water and the intense music picking up as you see him in the water, and then he slowly gets reeled into this boat. Would Bro survive that long? I guess we don't really have a timeline of how long he was out there before the fishermen found him, and also, I guess he had to have lost every memory that he ever had in that moment. So maybe he was out there for a while. So, Jason Bourne's already surviving out in the water. So he gets pulled into the fisherman's boat, and they do a little medical analysis on him. Turns out he got hit with 3 bullets. He had a chip installed in him with a message saying something about Zurich. So this was crazy already. This is kind of off the rails already, which, like I mentioned before, you're not expecting too much of this movie to be very, very realistic, but Bro is floating out there with 3 bullets, and the chip, I guess, we're all gonna end up having chips in us, right? So it doesn't matter that much. But the 3 bullets, that's a lot. I guess he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so they didn't get that far. The guy's able to pull him out. He wakes up and he can instantly speak French and Swiss somehow, and then once they let him go into Switzerland. I'm kind of hem-hawing through the part of him on the boat. That's classic, like, oh, where am I? I gotta recover and talk to the fisherman and train, and that's like a 10-minute segment. But he's back in Switzerland, and then now that he's in Switzerland, he falls asleep on a bench, which also in Switzerland, I'm assuming it's very cold. I was in Norway, and that place was fucking cold as fuck, so I'm assuming Switzerland's the same. Sleeping on a bench, just rotting, and then two cops come up to him and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? You probably shouldn't be like sleeping on a bench outside. Europe's not very big on homeless people, even in 2002. But right away we learn what his skill set is he just beats the shit out of these two Swiss cops, goes on the run once again. So this is where we get introduced to what I was talking about earlier, younger Brian Cox. So I thought his image was a bit jarring after Succession, or after watching Succession. It's hard to recognize him at the beginning, but once you hear his voice, it's him. So essentially he's a sketchy CIA operator whose men failed an assassination attempt. Turns out, once we peel back the curtain, that the man who failed the assassination attempt was actually Jason Bourne. So I'm wondering if in the second or third movie they address Brian Cox again. I meant to look up if he stars in the second or third movie, but I didn't end up doing it. But I think Brian Cox actually plays a pretty strong role in this movie. He's kind of like the political guy who wants to make sure that everything's all set and there's no loose ends and everything's going to go well. And, he's kind of like, if you watch Prison Break, he's like Kellerman kind of, like he's basically like the person who's in charge. Make sure everything is running smoothly and there's no hiccups and there's no things that can fuck them up. So I did like Brian Cox in that role a lot. He has a very limited role, but I thought it was a pretty decent job by him. So what was the clue to Zurich? I kind of missed this because, I don't know, I feel like they kind of sped through this quickly, but he's got a bank in Zurich. That's where his message in the chip in his body was leading to. So inside this lockbox, there's all this information. So he lived in Paris. There's a gun in there. There's mad money, which I don't know how he had all that money. Maybe it was a prepaid contract. I don't know. Passports in a separate section of the box. He does not take the gun. He leaves it. He was there 3 weeks ago at the bank, and there's a guy watching him and makes the call on him already. So they were expecting him to come back, which I don't know why they didn't just take him here. If they were expecting him to come back, I don't know. If they couldn't find his body, wouldn't you want to have like a million people ready there for him? I guess that wouldn't even be good enough to get him, but who knows. So he's walking the streets. He gets recognized pretty instantly, and this is a little bit scary if this is an accurate representation of the CIA, because they just have people all over it. He instantly gets recognized on the street. Essentially, he has to walk into the U.S. Embassy because the people outside are Swiss or something. Maybe it wasn't the CIA. Maybe it was just Swiss police looking for him because he beat the shit out of that cop, and they had an ID on him, which I don't even think that would be possible. But anyways, so he's in the U.S. Embassy, and then, of course, they realize that he's Jason Bourne, he's wanted, blah, blah, blah. Beats the shit out of them, too. Already tanking police officers, embassy agents. So we learned that the FBI, or I was assuming the FBI has some sort of connection to him. They liked it better when he's dead. Now that they don't know he's alive, I will say that this is something else that keeps happening during the movies. We kind of get these like check-ins with the FBI when he's, most of the movies obviously around Jason Bourne, his path, but sometimes we just check in with the FBI. So they are checking in now that they have him alive. They liked it better when he was dead. They want him in a body bag by sundown, activate agents around the globe, make phone calls, and that was a pretty cool scene when they just call like 5 different people and they're all doing different stuff. That was like kind of a classic movie scene that you see. Well, they just make the calls, kind of like a John Wick type thing where they make the calls to all the people around the world and then they wake up and go and try and find Jason Bourne. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was John Wick stolen IP from Jason Bourne? I don't know. Kind of different, but similar concept. Anyways, so while he's in the U.S. Embassy, he obviously gets smoked out by the agents there. They're all pursuing him. So he just scales the building, gets the chick who is having issues in the console to drive him to Paris. This is our girl throughout the movie, Marie. I didn't like Marie in this movie. I thought she was a pretty weak character. She felt pretty shallow to me. Maybe I'm just being a hater, but I felt like the connection between the two actors was very weak, and it didn't feel real at all that they were in love or like passionate about each other at all. So that was just my opinion. I mentioned that before, so I won't go too into it again. So essentially, how he meets is she sees she has problems in the console. She's trying to get an export to live in somewhere else, but she's arguing with the person. So he notices her, and then she's outside of her car. He says, "Hey, I gotta give you like 500K to drive me to Paris." And she's like, "Of course, I'll do that," even though I'm gonna say no at the beginning. That's a lot of things in these. I just watched something else where they give money and are not even money. They're just like, "Hey, would you drive me here?" And they're like, "Sure, okay." Maybe if that's how you meet a lover, go ahead. So, yeah, I'm already annoyed with this girl. They drive together for like 2 days to Paris. Just did not vibe with her at all. Of course, they end up at his apartment, his old apartment, and he's like, the classic dynamic between them. He's like, "Stay here, don't do anything stupid," and then she's like, "No, I'm just gonna do something stupid." So he wants to go upstairs to his apartment, check it out, and then he's like, "Stay down here," and she's like, "No, I'm going up with you." Okay. Anyways, he has different identities, so his French identity is known to be killed in an accident, and his brother came to pick everything up without a trace of where to find his brother. Clearly, just an FBI agent copped all of his stuff. Well, he could, so smart move by the FBI. They're always one step ahead until they aren't, but essentially, he's not got his stuff, his extra stuff that he thought he had, because he already has like a million passports and a million monies and a gun, so I don't know. Anyways, someone raids the apartment, one of the sleeper agents that was woken up by the call. This was an accident waiting to happen. They're only in there for 10 minutes and this guy already comes. Bourne does get the best of him and knocks him out cold. And then the agent jumps out the window and dies in the street. So that draws a big crowd to their apartment. So they got to go. Marie's tweaking due to the agent having her picture in his kind of information folder / whatever he was carrying bag. And she passes out after seeing he has a picture of her. I guess this one's more plausible and reasonable because if you're just a regular person, you're like, why the does this random guy have a picture of me? I don't know. That's fine, I guess. So the door woman who we met earlier was very happy to see Jason again. I think his name is Michael Caine in Paris. But as they make their way out of the stairs at the bottom, she got shot in the dome piece, and this is just like, why? Why do we have to kill the poor dorm woman? Maybe she was giving the guy a hard time, but that felt like unnecessary to me. Why does she need a bullet in her brain? That was a nice lady. R.I.P. to the dorm woman. So once again, we have the same conundrum. Jason Bourne wants Marie to go to the police, so she makes it out clean, gets out of here alive. She just says, "I was with him. He made me drive to Paris, blah, blah, blah," and that's it. Go live a happy life and wherever with 500K. No, she doesn't want to do that. She makes the final choice of sticking with him, buckling in her seatbelt, ready for the drive. So you can't be mad at anything else that happens. You had a chance to walk away, and you'll have more chances to walk away because he keeps telling you to walk away, but you don't do it. So anything that happens in the movie later on is on your shoulders. I'm sorry. So they're in a car. They get recognized. Car chase scene down. They drive downstairs in the opposite lane of traffic, eventually evading the police. So this guy can do everything. It's Jason Bourne. Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. I haven't even seen that line yet, but he's got everything figured out. He's just trained well in everything, clearly scaling buildings, beating people up, driving. So good for him. So essentially, we learned the backstory of this was this man named Wambosi. He's a guy who got an attempted assassination on him earlier in the film. I don't think I mentioned that part yet. He goes to the morgue, doesn't buy the fake body that the FBI has put there for him. We come to find out later on in the movie that he knows it was Bourne. He saw Jason Bourne, but doesn't buy the body being Jason Bourne because it's all burnt up, but the body's not shot. He's after Bourne. He knows that he was shot, so he doesn't buy this fake story from the FBI. As Bourne and Marie head after the car chase, they need to clean up. She gets a nice little haircut. I think she looked way better with the shorter hair, if I'm being honest. Just a male giving his opinion. Sue me. Of course, once they're all cuddled up in this room, fixing each other up, they have to kiss. He hesitates at first, but then they make out, and then they also are in a hotel somehow, which I don't know how that would be possible, but go for it. So now they're in love. They're madly in love. Whatever. So the CIA is trying to do their best to clean up as well. They get Wambosi with a sniper, just take him out. I thought that was a pretty big surprising. That was a pretty interesting plot twist. Seemingly Wambosi's dead. Yes, he is dead after this. I thought maybe there's a chance he's alive. Bourne took 3 bullets, but Wambosi is dead. Kind of a very minor role for Wambosi, but it kind of makes sense for what his role was in the film. So why did they kill him? They're framing Jason Bourne as the killer. They said he'll come back now that his assignment was done. Now that his kill has been made, he's going to come back to the FBI. Um, Now everything's starting to fall into place for Mike or Jason Bourne. He realizes that he was Michael Caine, but he's supposedly dead, and he knows about the fake body in the morgue. He had a meeting with the security people, so or Wombosi did. So now everything's starting to connect for him after they make a visit to the morgue themselves, and or he meets with the security people. I forget what their role was in this. So he finds out Wombosi being part of everything as he was in the security brochure that he looked at with. I think there was a leading clue to the security team, so that's why he made his way back to that building. He finds Wombosi in the brochure. Then they find out he was dead, and they realize that Jason Bourne himself was the person who went to attack him on the yacht. So the dots are really starting to connect for Jason and Marie. Which, if I was Marie, I'm like, why the fuck am I still here? But you met him before this, so it's like always the classic age-old question: would you leave once you know that he's this very insane agent? I guess she's already seen it all, so maybe not. The CIA is waiting for them at the spot of Wombosi's death, but they realize, so they ditch last second. He breaks into a police car window just to prove a point about them being wanted. This was stupid. He just calls for more attention, but by not doing it, it's the classic trope, whatever. So he promises to bring her back home. So of course the CIA knows this and is on to them right away. They have all 5 of her locations. They have everything on them. It was cool to see the behind the scenes FBI. I always like those little FBI scenes. Another Prison Break reference. Mahone when he's in the FBI and they're just like, where was Michael Scofield born? Where was he last lived? They pull up all the locations and stuff, and they just basically know everything about them in like 2 seconds. So I thought that was cool. So of course, one of the 5 locations, Bourne and Marie are headed there. It's to one of Marie's friends / ex-lover. He's got cute kids and a dog, and instantly I was like, no, please no. The poor doorwoman already died. We can't have kids and this nice little dog dying, especially not the dog and obviously the kids, but the dog would be most important. So they're going to spend the night here. Bourne's going to leave in the morning, but before that happens, he wakes up in the middle of the night and he tweaks in front of the kids. He's just standing there staring at them, which more signs that he's just psycho. But I guess this is our kind of prelude to the big twist at the end of the movie. So they wake up, or Bourne wakes up after this. Him and Marie talk. They go back to bed. They wake up, and now the dog is gone. Bourne knows instantly that means something's up. He tells them all to get in the basement. It's a one-on-one at this point, him versus the sniper who killed Wombosi. He blows up the tank as a distraction from the sniper early. He shoots the sniper, then right again as the sniper goes to pick up his pistol. The sniper, as he's about to die, basically I skipped the whole confrontation, but it's just classic action. Blow up the fuel tank, make your run super fast. Sniper misses. Where is he? Oh, he's right there. Shot, dead. Wakes up and he's talking about Treadstone. I don't even know what Treadstone is. Maybe it was the operation to kill Wombosi, but whatever. So he pushes away Marie once again, and at this point I'm like, just go, Marie, please, but we're too far in for this, so of course she's not going to go. Why would you not leave, though? Whatever. So he calls in the FBI with the dead sniper's phone, telling them that Marie is dead. That was smart because I think Marie actually does end up leaving with her friend and the dog and the kids. So Marie's out of the picture finally. It's going to be the last couple action scenes. He's trying to set up meet with them on the bridge, and he stakes it out. Obviously, he's on a rooftop. He sees that there's a million sleeper agents right near the bridge. He realizes everyone's around him to come and meet Bourne. He leaves, but throws a tracker on their van, so now he has their location. So once they make their way back to their little apartment headquarters, which had this nice little woman there who's just kind of doing everything for them as well on the streets. So that woman was pretty much a boss. I was trying to explain that she is a boss. I don't know, that came across wrong. But anyways, once he has their apartment, he distracts them with car alarms, somehow setting off 90 at once. Maybe that's a little party trick. I'm not sure how he did that, but it'll work because they all go and look for it. So once this final sequence happens, we learn everything of the backstory. Essentially, he was an invisible asset that was supposed to kill Wambosi conspicuously. The kids are all there, so he didn't do it once Wambosi's kids were all around him. So he didn't want to kill him in front of his kids. What a nice guy. Only real lead up we have to that is him looking at the kids in the boat, but whatever. I mean, the kids in the house, but whatever. So more action happens. At this point, he's in a confrontation with his former boss, who I didn't even bother to know that guy's name. I don't even know if his name is important. So anyways, this whole head-to-head's happening. He uses a guy as a cushion, falling down 7 flights of stairs. Mid-air, shoots someone, then is mostly fine after that, just gets up and runs away. So that was the point most of that was leading to, with the action just becoming straight up ridiculous at the end. So there is one of these sleeper agents on the street. He takes out the head CIA guy, the boss of the former boss of Jason Bourne, due to the order of Brian Cox, and the operation shut down. Everything's been cut. The wires are clean. Trash everything. So Brian Cox does the cleanup. Everything's good for now, but I'm sure Jason Bourne will seek retribution in the second movie. And then after everything's settled down, his conversations figured out. He figured out who he was, what he was there for. He'd made the right decision. Okay, everything's all set. Should be over, right? Nope. He's got to go make a trip to see Marie, who's on some tropical island. So of course he goes to get her. They're probably gonna live happily ever after. Just kidding. There's 4 more movies where he's probably gonna end up half dying in like all of them. So that's it. The Bourne Identity. I thought it was kind of went out with a little bit of a whimper there, but the ending makes sense, especially with sequels in mind. So as mentioned before, we'll see if I ever watch the sequels. Maybe in like 3 years I'll watch them all. Who knows? But stick along for the ride on the DubCast channel. We got more content coming out soon. Next movie review will be Extraction 2. And besides that, weekly NFL streams, weekly Survivor, and always looking for more movies and things like that. So more content on the way. TV stuff potentially coming soon. Don't want to tease that because I don't know how quickly that'll come, but expect more content as always. And special shout out, this is the first video post 50 subscribers. We hit 50 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for all the support, all your love. I really appreciate it. Likes, views, comments, dislikes, subscriptions. It's awesome. The train's gonna keep on going. So as always, appreciate you guys, and be easy.